morning and welcome to Let's Talk Antiques here on Thunder Radio. I'm Keith with you. We got Ray and David and Phil and myself. Max is on special assignment today, and today we finished Fayetteville. Today we have two special guests right now, Miss Carolyn Denton, director of the Chamber in Fayetteville, and Miss Carol Foster of the Fayetteville Main Street. They're going to talk a little bit about the cruise in and the fair in Fayetteville. Ladies, thanks for coming on.
Good morning. Good morning.
Oh, hang on one second.
Hang on just a second, Carol. We got to get some volume here.
Okay.
All right.
Perfect. Alrighty, yes, ladies, thanks for coming on. Want to tell us a little bit about the cruise in and what's going on the square next month?
Sure. We've always got a lot of things going on here in Fayetteville and Lincoln County, and I'm really excited to be able to share it with you guys. Our Lincoln County Fair is coming up, begins on the 12th and will run through the 19th of September. This is the 111th annual fair, so we always look forward to the fair coming to town.
Yeah, what about that Lincoln? Don't you have something special there, like a mule race or some kind of a race?
We have Tennessee's only harness racing here.
There we go. Okay. Yeah.
The harness racing will begin on Tuesday and run through the 19th, and it's become so popular that there's even a nighttime race on the 15th for folks that can't come during the day. They can come in the evening and enjoy harness racing.
Hmm.
And there's a website if you'd like to go to. It's www.lincolncountyfairtn.com. If you'd like to schedule and see what else going on, there's a lot of activities.
Huh. Well, tell us about the square and the cruise-in you're going to have and when it is. And tell us about, have you had it before and that type of stuff?
No, this is our first ever. This will be the first cruising downtown Fayetteville 2015. Coming up October the 17th, and of course it will be on our downtown square, and we're really excited about bringing in some vintage cars, and if any of your listeners have cars that they would like to share that day, we'd love to see them, love to have you.
Yeah, we have several car clubs around here in Coffee County.
Great. Well, we're trying to spread the word about it.
They can call 931-433-6154, which is the city of Fayetteville, and just ask for an application. Or you can go to the website of FayettevilleTN.com, and it should be on that also.
Well, have you got a lot of cars already committed to the cruise-in?
The applications are coming in. They're starting to come in, so we're real excited about it.
You know, I'm sure you have car clubs over in Lincoln County, too. I don't know. My family's owned the Jiffy Burger here in Manchester for 50 years, and we have an annual cruise-in. It's the last Saturday of August, and the car clubs do the advertisement for us. I don't know if you might reach out to your car club friends over there and let them help you with your advertisement.
Here in Middle Tennessee and also in northern Alabama as well. So we're going to be blocking off the entire center of our square. Of course, we're the county seat. We have the courthouse in the middle, and we'll be blocking off the parking all around the square. And then we have some good food lined up as well, and some bands that will be playing throughout the afternoon. It begins at 4, and we'll be wrapping it up about 9 o'clock that night.
Yeah, well, you got a perfect place to do that with your square, with all the businesses, and you got restaurants and antique stores, and I mean, perfect place to have a cruise in.
That's right, and we love to show off our downtown area and help out our merchants in the process. So we're a lot of people into downtown.
Yeah, I mean, you got something really to be proud of, because most communities have lost their downtown. But I notice now, we're doing the segment on, matter of fact, after we get through talking to you, we're going to try to finish up the Fayetteville Square, but we're doing we've already done Manchester and Tullahoma and Lynchburg, and we're doing Fayetteville now, and we're going to do Winchester starting next week. Then about 3 weeks out, we're going to do Shelbyville. And that's kind of what our segment has been about. We're wanting to let people know, that squares are not dead. And you're a good example of the square not being dead.
Right. And we started back in the spring the first ever Slauberger Festival. We're kind of known for our pool room slaw, which is a mustard-based slaw here in Fayetteville, and we've created a whole downtown street festival around the slaw, and had a huge turnout for that, and we're really excited about that. That's coming up again. In fact, we had a meeting this morning about it for this coming April.
Yeah, well, I'm real familiar with your slaw because the Daniels that used to live in Lincoln County had a restaurant in Tullahoma. They matter of fact, they had a couple of them, and one thing they brought from Lincoln County was the pool room slaw.
Oh,
and
wow.
and my mother worked for the Daniels in the late 50s and until, well, about to 63, because we ended up with another restaurant in Tullahoma, and then in 65 we went to Manchester. But I said all that to say that when we came to Manchester, we brought that pool room slaw. Of course, we don't have it now, but my mother knew the formula, and they had other things too, like they made their own blue cheese dressing and Thousand Island and all that stuff. But that slaw was a big hit up here in Manchester.
It's popular. So we're between the Slawburger Festival and the Cruise Inn, and then in November will be our 23rd annual Fayetteville Host of Christmas Past, which brings in about 18,000 people to our downtown area. So we're gearing up for that. It's always the second full weekend of November, so this year it'll be the November the 13th, 14th, and 15th.
And they can, and the listeners can just go to your website and see all of the things that is happening in downtown Fayetteville, right?
Absolutely. We have a community calendar of events on our website, FayettevilleLincolnCountyChamber.com, and that's being updated every day. There's always something to add to our calendar.
Well, do you have any idea about how many cars you anticipate on having?
Well, we have the center of downtown blocked, and we have an auxiliary parking lot saved in case we have overflow. Because we'll have registration on the day of.
Yeah. Do you know about how many cars you can park in the downtown, the center part of it?
Probably 50, because we want to give them enough space.
Yes. Well, when some of those cars from 5,000 to 125,000. So you're right. They got to have that space. Nobody wants those scratches on them doors or hoods, do they?
That's right.
Yeah. That's good that you're doing that, giving them that extra space. But I'll just tell you right now, I bet you're going to have a whole lot more cars than that.
Well, yes, that's wonderful. But this event is on Saturday, October the 17th in downtown Fayetteville from 4 to 9 p.m. And we'd love people just to come. As Carolyn was saying, we're going to block off the south side of the square and have music so you can even dance in the street and on chair and sit and just enjoy.
Well, we need to send Keith down there, and of course we're going to have to freshen him up on some of those dancings. He probably don't know none of those dances. It'll be the sock hop type dances.
There you go.
All right. Do you have anything else you want to tell us about the square and the cruise in before we go to break?
Well, our square is active every day of the week.
Yeah, oh yeah,
They can go fabric shopping at Serves Fabrics, enjoy some of our wonderful antique shops, have a bite to eat in an old jail or have one of our sandwich shops.
I've done that. I've been to the old jail. I was the county mayor here in Coffee County, and of course I was my co-mayor was Betty, the county mayor of Lincoln County. I mean Peggy Bevels.
Right, that's right.
Nice lady.
It was through Peggy.
Yeah, she was a sweet lady.
Yeah.
She took me to the old jail. I like that kind of jail where you can go and eat and get out and come on back,
No bond money.
Yeah, no bond money.
That's the best kind to go to, I hear.
Well, I guess, Ray, it was kind of a bond money because you have to leave a tip, right? Could we consider that a little bit of a bond money?
It depends on the waitress or waiter.
Yeah, okay.
If they're big
Usually
and ugly, you better.
An attorney when you go there.
Well, thank you, ladies, for coming on, and we will talk to you when it gets closer to the Christmas of the past, and y'all can let us know more about it when it gets closer.
Great. Well,
Thank you.
we appreciate the opportunity to share this with you all.
Yes, ma'am. We will talk to you later. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Bye. We'll be right back here on Let's Talk Antiques.
The Jiffy Burger on the Hillsborough Boulevard in Manchester has been voted as having the best hamburgers in Manchester. Hometown atmosphere, historical memorabilia, and of course those great burgers, salads, chicken, and so much more. It's the Jiffy Burger on the Hillsborough Boulevard in Manchester. Call in orders at 728-4452. You can also order at the convenient outdoor curb service. Hamburgers are made the old-fashioned way at the Jiffy Burger, Manchester's finest hamburgers. Open 7:30 until 9, Monday through Saturday.
We would like to thank Dr. David Florence for supporting Let's Talk Antiques. See Dr. Florence at 804 Kalon Street in Manchester for all of your medical needs. Call 728-5522 for your appointment today. Most insurances accepted.
Shelton Lane Antiques in Manchester has over 5,000 square feet of antiques for treasure hunters to explore. They sell vintage clocks, gas pumps, signs, furniture, and glassware. They have over 3,000 vinyl records and a fully stocked 1950s-style general store. Owners Harold and Ruby Shelton have been collecting unique items for years, and you can start or complete your own collection today at Shelton Lane Antiques. Open Wednesday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. at 100 Shelton Lane, just off 16th Model Road in Manchester, Tennessee. Come look around and plan to stay a while at Shelton Lane Antiques, where we sell antiques, but the history is free.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Antiques here on Thunder Radio. I'm Keith with you. Thanks for listening today. Our next guest for Fayetteville is Jim Malone, lifelong resident. Jim, thanks for being on the show today.
Well, you're most welcome. Look forward to it, and yeah, I'm a lifelong resident of Fayetteville and proud of it.
Jim, it's David Pennington. Good to hear from you.
How you doing, sir?
I'm good, and Jim and I have had several conversations.
I've been good, too.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you something, I'll tell you where we're at on the square. Coming in from Lynchburg, we started down that side, and then we turned left, and we started that side. Now we're ready to turn left again, and that'll be right in there where whatever's on the end, all the way up to where the pool room, slaw, and all that stuff is.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but before we do that, something I think our audience needs to know that your family was in the manufacturing business, I guess, I don't know how many years. Maybe you can just tell us a little story about that.
Oh, okay. All righty. Well, my father and mother, as young people before they met, and actually it's where they met, worked in the garment business here in Fayetteville for a number of years. It was typical of the migration of industrial moving from the north to the south for a number of reasons. One was cheaper labor, less expensive labor, lower cost labor, however you might want to refer to it as, and somewhat getting away from the unions at the time.
Yeah, and also with the TVA here, it was cheaper utility costs too.
Correct, exactly. So a company out of Cleveland, Ohio, by the name of L.N. Gross and Company, located a plant here in Fayetteville. That building still stands. That building is poured in place concrete, probably make a good bomb shelter if we ever need one. Hope we don't. But that operated here from the late 30s up until the mid 80s, I guess. It was L.N. Gross and Company for a number of years out of Cleveland, Ohio. And the Gross boys, as they were referred to, knew the Servin boys, as they were referred to, and formed somewhat of a partnership. And the Servin brothers bought out the Gross brothers at one time, I believe, in the early 50s, and located 100% of their manufacturing here. And I don't know what depth you want me to get into it, but I can tell you a number of stories about that building and about that plant. And one of them was in the early to mid-50s, 53, 54, somewhere along in there, Servin and the ILGWU, which was International Ladies Garment Workers Union, had a strike. And a little bitty sleepy town in southern Middle Tennessee made front page news all over the world. fact, there's a German magazine, newspaper or two floating around that had that strike mentioned on the front page. It was front page news to the Miami Herald, New York Times, all the major papers across the country, and the strike was settled. There's numbers of pictures on Facebook about it. The strike was settled, the union was voted out, and Serban continued for many years after that until the mid-'80s.
Mm-hmm.
In the early 60s, a plant was built, and for lack of a better term, we always called it the new plant, out on the Pulaski Highway.
Mm-hmm.
It was a state-of-the-art manufacturing facility. I can remember before it was open, it was 100% Singer sewing machine plant.
Mm-hmm.
The sewing machine in that building was by Singer.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting part of it was, and this is kind of when us three boys, my two brothers and I, got involved in the company. But over the years, every major department store in the country would come to Fayetteville to buy.
That's amazing.
American Airlines had a route from New York to Nashville and on to Los Angeles, so a lot of the East Coast buyers would fly from the New York area to Nashville. We'd pick them up, bring them down. They would come to our plant and buy, and we'd take them back to the airport in the next morning, and they would fly on to California. And somewhat the reverse of the situation from California. One of the couples that came here was a super nice couple, originally from Germany area, a Jewish couple. They left that part of the world to get away from Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
Wound up in New York, met and married and moved on to California, and he managed a group of ladies specialty stores out there. Well, they would come to Fayetteville every summer to buy, and then he would take a couple of weeks vacation, and they would tour the Civil War battlefields around the area.
Mm-hmm.
I always found it unique. A couple from Europe who had never lived in the South, had no knowledge of the Civil War firsthand, were an authority on the American Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
Knew more about it than most people that live in this part of the world did. But anyway, over the years, there were a lot of department stores came to Fayetteville. Saks Fifth Avenue was our biggest customer, and I can remember in the early 70s going to New York myself, and every window on Saks Fifth Avenue's Fifth Avenue side had our product in it. Every one of them were manufactured in Fayetteville.
Huh, that is amazing, Jim.
It was interesting to see all of that. Of course, it was the first week in November, which is a beautiful time in New York.
Mm-hmm. What happened to the company? Did overseas take over the market, or what?
Well, a combination of things, but a lot of it was the demise of the mom and pop ladies specialty shop type of deal.
Yeah.
I think every town at one time had 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 ladies shops in it. In fact, we even had a shop here called the Hat Shop.
Uh-huh.
And they primarily had women's millinery, hats, gloves, accessories, and things like that. That was part of the reason that domestic manufacturing went away. Of course, the cheaper labors of Mexico and China and
yeah. Well,
Vietnam.
Probably back then it was probably Taiwan and Hong Kong and that type, and Japan, and
exactly.
And then it worked its way over to, you can when you look at old toys and stuff or anything that was manufactured, it's got a pattern. Japan was one of them. Like I just said, Hong Kong, Taiwan. As you get up into the Taiwan, you're getting up into the 80s, and then, like you said, now here we are, 2015. China's even sliding a little bit, and I think it's South Korea that's making a lot of.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And Vietnam and
Yes.
Cambodia are making a lot too.
Absolutely, you're right. Keith, how much time do we have? Do we need to take a break?
Yeah, we can.
I tell you what, Jim, we're going to take a break, and then you know where we're at on the square, so we're going to start up at one side, and we're not just going to name what was there. We're actually going to talk about the people that had it.
Okay.
In your what you remember about it, And what's there now?
All right, I'll be waiting on you.
Okay.
The Jiffy Burger on the Hillsborough Boulevard in Manchester has been voted as having the best hamburgers in Manchester. Hometown atmosphere, historical memorabilia, and of course those great burgers, salads, chicken, and so much more. It's the Jiffy Burger on the Hillsborough Boulevard in Manchester. Call in orders at 728-4452. You can also order at the convenient outdoor curb service. Hamburgers are made the old-fashioned way at the Jiffy Burger, Manchester's finest hamburgers. Open 7:30 until 9, Monday through Saturday.
We would like to thank Dr. David Florence for supporting Let's Talk Antiques. See Dr. Florence at 804 Kalon Street in Manchester for all of your medical needs. Call 728-5522 for your appointment today. Most insurances accepted.
Shelton Lane Antiques in Manchester has over 5,000 square feet of antiques for treasure hunters to explore. They sell vintage clocks, gas pumps, signs, furniture, and glassware. They have over 3,000 vinyl records and a fully stocked 1950-style general store. Owners Harold and Ruby Shelton have been collecting unique items for years, and you can start or complete your own collection today at Shelton Lane Antiques. Open Wednesday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. at 100 Shelton Lane, just off 16th Model Road in Manchester, Tennessee. Come look around and plan to stay a while at Shelton Lane Antiques, where we sell antiques, but the history is free.
Okay, welcome back now. We want to get back with Mr. Jim Malone and talking about the Fayetteville Square.
Hey, Jim.
Hey,
All right, we gave you a little break there so you can kind of get your perspectives right. So let's start on that corner and head up toward the Slawburger place.
all right, well, you're talking about Old Hula Hands. Is that where we are?
Well, if you come in from Lynchburg and you go down that one side, we got all that took care of.
Okay,
And then you turn left there to go around the square. We got that one side took care of.
okay.
All right, now we're ready to turn left again and start on that corner and work that side, and then come back up and turn left again and work that corner. And we still have two sides to go. Do you know where you're at?
Well, I take it that we're on the southwest corner of the square.
Well, you and the surveyors, y'all know all those south and east and west. I don't, but I'd say you know what you're talking about. On that one particular wall there, it seems like there's a Coca-Cola sign on there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Do you know anything about the Coca-Cola sign before we get started on the business that's in that?
Yes, sir.
Well, tell us about that Coca-Cola sign. I noticed that last time I was down there across the street from it's a lot of antique shops.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Tell us about the Coca-Cola sign, about when it was put up, and it's really interesting.
I have no idea when that Coca-Cola sign was put up. I do know that Coca-Colas were probably a nickel or 6 cents when it was put up. So it's been many years ago.
Yeah. Well, Coca-Cola, I remember as a kid, Coca-Colas were still a nickel, about 63, 62, somewhere in there. And about somewhere right in there, 63, I think, is when they went up to 6 cents, didn't he?
Something like that.
Yeah.
I can remember as a child down at Taft, we picked up Coca-Cola bottles and took them to the store and got a 3-cent deposit back on them.
Yeah.
And the Cokes themselves were a nickel. So, you're talking about 2 cents worth of product.
Oh, I know. We talked about it before that when they went up to 6 cents, people said, I ain't buying that. I ain't paying 6 cents for a Coke. Okay, so do you know much about that sign?
It's been there for many years. It was on the corner of, on the side of the building, it was Moore's Food Store for a number of years.
Uh-huh. So it was a grocery store?
I don't know this, but if you go across the street and down a couple of doors, that's where the original Coca-Cola plant was in Fayetteville.
Well, I'll be dog.
In later years, of course, it was out on the Pulaski Highway, West Washington.
Well, what's there now where the original Coca-Cola plant was?
It's one of the antique shops there on South Main. I don't know exactly which one it is.
That's amazing, though, because those shops are not that big.
No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. And if you went to Magnolia Mall as you went around the square,
uh-huh,
they have an elevator in that building that's pulled up by rope, no motor on it at all. That elevator actually came out of the Coca-Cola plant on South Main.
I'll be dog.
And it was only used on 2 floors.
Uh-huh.
So when they removed it from that old building and took it up to Magnolia Mall, they actually had to add another floor to the track so they could service all 3 of the floors at Magnolia Mall.
Huh. That's amazing.
But anyway, that Coca-Cola sign has been there for years. It probably, with the exception of the Old Stone Bridge, is the most photographed thing in Lincoln County.
Yeah. Have they ever had to restore it, or is that the original? Is it
I think
untouched?
It's probably the original. It's certainly faded.
Yes, but it's
At
still.
the time, it's still there.
Yeah, but it's still nice and bright where you can tell what it is. So that makes sense, Jim, that that was actually a grocery store there.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we're going to start right there. So we'll start with the store. What'd you say the name of the store was?
It was Moore's Food Store. It was James Moore, better known as Spratt Moore.
Mm-hmm.
Spratt was a nickname of his, but Mr. Moore was in business there for a number of years, and of course at that time there were a number of grocery stores around the square. And as we go up the street, I'll tell you about another grocery store that was there.
Okay, what about that one that we're talking about now? Do you know what year that it closed as a store?
Oh, probably sometime mid-'70s, late '70s, something like that.
Okay, now what's there now?
Well, it's Old Houlihan's Restaurant. It's one of our good restaurants on the square in Fayetteville. They serve excellent sandwiches, soups, and salads. Real laid-back type of atmosphere, excellent food, and good people that run that.
Okay, so let's go next door to the next building then.
Okay. The next door is now a apparel shop for bridesmaids' dresses, formals, and this type of thing. And I think somewhat typical of today's time, it may be even a resale shop. In other words, not always offering brand new merchandise.
Oh, okay. Well,
I do know that they've got a good selection in there and do a good business. Now, like everything else, it's been a multitude of things over the years. Not too long ago, it was an office supply store.
All right. As a kid, though, what do you remember being there?
Good question. That's been too long ago for me to remember.
Well, let's go back as far as you can. What's the earliest of your memory of something being there that you know of?
Well, you're bringing up some old memories. Seems like Harry's fruit store was there at one time.
Okay, was that in the 60s or 50s or?
The 50s, maybe 60s.
Okay.
That time.
All right. Now, what's our next store?
Next door is a barber shop. It's been a barber shop for I can't tell you how many years.
Well, did you get your hair cut there when you was a kid?
Maybe early on. One of the memories of that particular barber shop, and it's all barber shops at the time, but they had mirrors on both walls.
Right.
And I remember sitting in a barber chair and seeing the reflections back and forth.
Yeah.
Thinking, man, that goes all the way to the end of the street.
I know. That's, you know what, when you had a smaller building and you put those mirrors, they did look larger, didn't they?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is it still a barber shop?
It is still a barber shop, and it's the old-timey barber shop where you go in and you tell them how you want your hair cut, and they cut it the way they want to cut it.
Well, yeah, I know. Do they still shave? Huh?
I bet you get a good education there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. No gossip, though. No gossip.
Oh, I know. Uh-huh. Well, let me ask you this. Do they still shave your neck in there? You know, most shops don't do that no more. There's one here in Manchester that still does it.
Yeah, I presume they do. Now, my son has gotten his hair cut in there some, and he always looks pretty good, so I guess they do shave him.
So do you know how many chairs is in that shop?
Oh, no more than 2 or 3 now.
Yeah.
Today there was 5 or 6.
Yeah. All right. And I guess they still got the original chairs in there?
Got the original chairs in there, got the original lavatories, sinks.
Well,
I think they still got the spiral candy striped sign out front.
I'm sure they do. Well, one thing about porcelain sinks and stuff, you can't wear them out. So
No, sir, you can't.
the only thing you could do with them is just change them out. You sure couldn't. You couldn't wear them out. What's our next building?
The next building is currently Pam Howell's bookstore.
Uh-huh.
And Pam, one of my classmates, great lady, has any kind of book that you'd want to buy there, and she can order just about anything for you.
Does she sell used books too, or just all new stuff?
I think it's probably all new stuff, but again, with today's resale and stuff, she could probably get you out of date books, out of print dates if you wanted to.
Uh-huh. What's the farthest back you can go as far as a memory of something else being there?
Well, that's a good question, and I really can't think of anything unless that building was part of the Tyree fruit stand. That could possibly be part of that.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, so what's our next building?
The next building has been a number of things over the years. My earliest remember, it was a 2 or 3 stores now encompass this one grocery store, and it was Raymond Myers Grocery. I can remember going in there with my grandparents, and it was a typical screen door, and you know a screen door makes a sound like nothing else makes.
Oh, yeah.
When it opens, that spring is stretched, and when it slams too.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
But the biggest memory I have of that store is they had a donut machine in that store.
Huh.
And man, when they were cooking donuts, that was the best smell in the world.
So, it sounds like to me it was a pretty good-sized store.
Yes, sir, it was. As I remembered, and this goes back to the early 50s when I would go in there with my grandparents, it took up about 3, maybe 4 of those buildings that are there today.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I guess what we're trying to do is get around the square before we run out of time. How much time we got, Keith, altogether?
Yes, sir.
15 minutes.
Oh, about 15 minutes. Okay, so we're going to kind of just touch on them, and then we'll go back and talk a little bit more. I'm sure that building that we just talked about, that store, you remember that it had a lot of advertisement signs in there, Coca-Cola and all the breads and all the milk signs, and you remember that?
Yes, sir.
All right. What's
I
there?
still remember those signs, but what I remember more than anything is the smell in that store. You would smell the produce.
Yes.
See the bananas hung up on racks.
Yeah, see, they don't do that no more, do they?
No, they sure don't.
Well, right now, you said there's probably about 4 different stores. Real quick, can you tell us what's there now?
Well, there's a couple of antique malls in those buildings.
Yeah.
And there's an apparel store in there.
Yeah.
And I really think maybe Parks Jewelry, which was there for, 75 years, that building may still be empty.
Uh-huh, okay.
It was our last jewelry store on the square to close, and Mr. and Ms. Parks just finally hung it up and retired.
All right. Hey, Jim, we're going to take a break, and we'll be back with you, and we're going to try to get around the square if we can.
All right.
The Jiffy Burger on the Hillsborough Boulevard in Manchester has been voted as having the best hamburgers in Manchester. Hometown atmosphere, historical memorabilia, and of course those great burgers, salads, chicken, and so much more. It's the Jiffy Burger on the Hillsborough Boulevard in Manchester. Call in orders at 728-4452. You can also order at the convenient outdoor curb service. Hamburgers are made the old-fashioned way at the Jiffy Burger, Manchester's finest hamburgers. Open 7:30 until 9, Monday through Saturday.
We would like to thank Dr. David Florence for supporting Let's Talk Antiques. See Dr. Florence at 804 Kalon Street in Manchester for all of your medical needs. Call 728-5522 for your appointment today. Most insurances accepted.
Shelton Lane Antiques in Manchester has over 5,000 square feet of antiques for treasure hunters to explore. They sell vintage clocks, gas pumps, signs, furniture, and glassware. They have over 3,000 vinyl records and a fully stocked 1950 style general store. Owners Harold and Ruby Shelton have been collecting unique items for years, and you can start or complete your own collection today at Shelton Lane Antiques. Open Wednesday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. at 100 Shelton Lane, just off 16th Model Road in Manchester, Tennessee. Come look around and plan to stay a while at Shelton Lane Antiques, where we sell antiques, but the history is free.
All right, we're back now with Jim Malone from Fayetteville Square. He's filling us in on what's been there over the years. It's quite interesting.
Yes, it is. All right, Jim, you ready to go?
Yeah, let's back up just a little bit if we can. We've talked about the street level buildings there.
Yeah.
That section of the square has a second floor pretty much all the way across it.
Yeah.
And the two memories that I have, long about above the barber shop in that area, was old Dr. Young, the dentist office.
A lot of dentist offices were upstairs. They were that same way here in Manchester, plus the medical doctors was upstairs.
Yes, sir. And then on down the street about where we are now was Dr. Crawford's office.
And was he a medical doctor or a dentist or?
Was a dentist also.
Uh-huh. All right, so are we getting close to that pool room?
Well, actually, we are right at that pool room.
All right.
That's there's two pool rooms there. One of them is Honey's, which has been there for many years, and that's the home of the slaw burger.
Right.
Pool room slaw.
The mustard slaw.
Yes, sir. And then next door is Bill's pool room.
Yeah.
And over the years, they've been wards. They've been a number of different names, but I would say that there have been pool rooms in those two locations since probably the turn of the century.
Oh, let me ask you this, Jim. Are they still pool rooms?
Not in the sense of having pool tables.
Okay, so they're not a pool room no more.
When I was in high school, and the statute of limitations has run out on this, so I can tell this.
Go ahead.
I shot pool and ate lunch there every day my senior year in high school.
So, do you know what year they took the pool tables out of the pool room?
Sometime in the 90s, the food business just got so big that it was more profitable to operate food than it was pool room.
Yeah.
Now, at the same time, I can remember domino tables in the back of those pool rooms.
Uh-huh.
Men would come in there, especially in the wintertime when they couldn't work outside, sit there all day and play dominoes.
Oh, yeah.
But, of course, that's gone as far as that situation is concerned.
Yeah, well, now, when you was eating lunch there at your senior year, were they racking those balls for a dime?
Nickel or a dime.
Yeah.
It was pretty inexpensive to play up there, and we usually got a couple of slaw burgers and shot a couple of games of pool while we were on lunch, as they say.
Yeah, well, you can't. Those slaw burgers, that slaw is really good. You know, I think you probably heard when I was talking to the chamber ladies about. Was you listening when we was talking about that?
No, sir. I was on a conference call at the time.
Well, I was telling them about the Daniels that moved over to Tullahoma and had the waffle shop, and then they had Daniels Restaurant, and they brought that slaw with them, you know. And my mother worked for them in the early 50s, right on up to about 62, and you know, she had the formula to that slaw. So when we got Jiffy Burger in 65, that slaw came to Manchester.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, we better hustle up. How much time we got, Keith?
I got about 10 minutes.
About 10, okay.
Well, if Max is listening.
About 7 minutes, Jim, so you're going to have to walk the dog to get around that other side of that square, because...
Let's finish with the last building on that side of the square, and that was Standard Drug Store for many years.
Uh-huh.
2 or 3 of those buildings right now are kind of temporary.
Yeah.
There's not any full, they're not fully rented all the time. They're kind of a temporary building. Now, during our hosted Christmas past, they're packed in there.
Yeah.
And that end building, there's an attorney has his office upstairs.
Uh-huh. Now, let me ask you this, that drugstore, did it have a soda fountain when you was a young man?
I don't remember that one having a soda fountain, but Carter's, which we'll be coming up to now in just a moment, had a fantastic soda fountain.
Well, let me ask you one more thing about that drugstore there on the corner. What year did it go out?
As a drugstore, again, probably in the 70s.
Okay.
Where in the 70s, was on a downward slide.
Mm-hmm.
Like
all squares.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. In the 70s, as they say, the buildings around the square were dime a dozen.
Yeah. Yeah, you're
Actually,
right.
we used a couple of the buildings on the north side of the square as a fabric warehouse in the 60s and early 70s.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get to that next drugstore.
Okay, well, if you go around the corner of the square, there in the corner was Judge Templeton's lawyer, and Templeton and Thompson. And Jimmy Thompson's son still practices law in that corner building. It's a red brick building there.
Uh-huh.
Then you come on around the square on the east side, and the first half of it is now the city administration building.
Uh-huh.
It was a number of retail stores over the years. The store on the end was Coons 5 and Dime.
Oh, yeah, every square had to have a 5 and dime, didn't he?
Yes, sir. And of course, Coons was the predecessor of Big K.
Yep.
Coons Big K.
A lot of people don't know that, but you're exactly right.
Yes, sir. And in the basement of that building was Ford Scott's sign shop.
Mm-hmm.
And Ford Scott also was an accomplished artist.
Uh-huh. Most of them are. Most of those sign shop owners were.
Yes, sir. And that was where the famous fire started in the early 70s, which burned literally half of the east side of the square. It started in the basement of the Coons Big K in Ford Scott's sign shop.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
As we move on up the street, there was the National Store, there was Shaneberg's. There were a number of retail junior department store type of things, Russell and Aikens. Each one of them had their basement where the shoes generally were. They also had their second floor, which housed some of their merchandise. I can remember in one of those stores, and I can't tell you which one it was, but Mother taking me in there, and there was a machine that you got up on and stuck your feet in, up underneath that machine, and they would take an x-ray of your feet to make sure your shoes were fitting right.
I'll be dog. That's amazing.
I never saw that ever.
Yeah, me neither. That's great, though.
That's something new.
All right, we got about 2 minutes, Jim, so keep talking.
All righty, well, next building there was Carter's Drug Store, and at one time it was Union National Bank in that right beside it. Now, Carter's has both buildings now, but as a child in grade school, I can remember Mr. Jimmy Garish taking his class, of which I was a member of, up to the soda fountain at Carter's.
Yeah.
Now, it also was alluded to the fact that a number of men up at the church on Sundays, after they got everybody seated, they'd slip off up to Carter's to get a cup of coffee in the back.
Oh, yeah.
To say that was true or not, but I've heard that all my life.
I'd say it's true if you heard it.
Next door to Carter's, now is Whitney Stevens' law office, but it was Dale Reese Hardware for many, many years.
Every square had a hardware store, didn't he? At least one or two.
Our square had one on each side of the square.
Yeah.
That was Dale and Reese, and one of the older buildings there. It was run by the Ashby family.
Uh-huh.
And it, at the time, sold lots of rifle and shotgun shells.
Oh, yeah.
When the fire was going on 2 or 3 doors down, they moved all that ammunition up to about where Sears is now.
Yeah, I don't blame them.
Yes, sir. And
We got 1 minute, Jim, so.
all right. Well, the corner building there, and the corner building is a pivotal building. That's been a ladies' store for 50, 75 years.
That's amazing.
Originally owned by the Oddfellows Lodge.
Oh, yeah. Every community had an Oddfellows, too, lodge.
And when I was in local leadership, Lincoln leadership in 1997, the secret meeting rooms were still upstairs.
Oh, yeah. So, the Masonic Lodge was the same way, so that when they done their degree work, people couldn't watch.
Yes, sir. That's right. That's right. But we did have internet and telephone and television back then, so they needed a way to entertain themselves.
All right, now, Jim, looks like we've run out of time, and we really appreciate you.
Enjoy this. You're a good fella. You see much of Roxanne anymore?
All the time. I feed her at least once a week. I got to stay in touch with her.
She's a great lady.
I'll sure do that. And listen, we might get back with you and talk a little bit more about some more stuff about Fayetteville. Real quick, Lawson's, aren't they in there somewhere?
Yes, sir. Lawson's over on the north side of the square, and of course they have Manchester connections.
Yes, they do. All right, we got to get out of here, Jim.
Hey, man, enjoy. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
Bye.